Well, I have a controversial opinion. You know, every time sellers buy 1,000 Bitcoin, there is 1,000 altcoiners that will never exist again. Custody centralization is a much bigger threat than almost anything else to Bitcoin.
Imagine if everybody in society won the lottery tomorrow. Would that be a good thing or a bad thing for society?
Honestly, if you really think next month Bitcoin is $1 million, and you think that's going to be good, I disagree completely.
The next 10 years, as price goes up, a lot of Bitcoiners will get wealthier. And I feel like we're at a place where there's going to be enough Bitcoiners with enough amount of wealth where you're going to see
100K in 2020s, then the 2030s will be the 1 million, 2 million, 3 millions, and then the 2040 will be like the 10 millions. In 6 months from now, there's never been in the entirety of human history a better time to...
We can kill a lot of sell orders just by...
Mr. Brian DeMint, Matteo Pellegrini, thank you boys so much for joining me here today. The founder and CMO of Club Orange, one of the true, really, I think Bitcoiner freedom ethos companies out there spreading the mission. So we're just very grateful and honored to have you guys here today. Thank you.
Brandon, we're happy to be on. And Matteo and I don't usually get to do shows together. We're usually dividing and conquering. So this is actually, aside from seeing my buddy that I met you, Brandon, I think the day that I met Matteo, which is kind of crazy, years ago, out in California at a conference. The day I signed up for Club Orange myself was the day I met you. So this is kind of like a reunion almost, if you think about it.
Well, that's amazing. I think I never met you in person, Brandon. You might not come to visit the booth that we had at the Pacific Bitcoin.
What you were just talking about with an actual marketplace in this world. And we were talking offline about, the couple percent of society that really grabbed the musket in the American Revolution, said, hey, I'm not doing this anymore. And I feel like it seems like over the last 2 years that we have lost the plot a little bit, the narrative. And we haven't been focusing on building like you guys have. A lot of Bitcoiners, I'll speak for a lot of Bitcoiners, but I would love your thoughts just overall on kind of where we are in this picture right now.
If you ever wanted to build a software company, now is the time. It's like with AI, it's incredible. So if any Bitcoiners listening have an idea for a business, a software business, just go and start and do it, because literally there's never been in the entirety of human history a better time to start a business than 2026. In terms of being stuck, I would say that probably the culture has changed since the ETF and the treasury companies. I think I think it's a fair assessment to maybe it's more Bitcoin is kind of in a way maybe becoming more of a TradFi asset instead of a cyberpunk revolutionary, but of course, Bitcoin is whatever you want, right? Like that's the beauty of it. If you want to be the cyberpunk, you can be a cyberpunk. You can cold storage and, use it that way. If you want to buy the ETF, you can buy the ETF. So it's kind of becoming maybe 2 things or 3 things at the same time. But I hope that at some point it kind of come back to the main road of Bitcoin. And but at the same time, also, if Bitcoin is gonna win, nation states are gonna adopt it, companies there's no, I don't think there is no scenario in which Bitcoin is, let's say, the global reserve currency and only the plebs at the meetup on it. That doesn't, it's mathematically impossible. So it's kind of inevitable that nation states, Wall Street, and they all come on the bandwagon.
I think that's an interesting insight that we thought it would become a global standard, but we somehow also thought that everybody would become a pleb. That's a really interesting insight. I think many Bitcoiners believe that for a long time, because we saw what Bitcoin did for us, and we said, well, this is just a one direction thing, and so Bitcoin is going to grow and grow and grow, and it's like a virus. It's eventually going to consume everybody. But if the only way Bitcoin grew was through self-custody, then maybe that would be the case. But like you said, Bitcoin's growing, and part of that, those growing pains are the access through the ETF and the treasury companies. And so Bitcoin, I don't think when you buy a treasury company stock, I don't think Bitcoin does the same thing to you in terms of getting you to look inward and be introspective and consider, time and your productivity and your savings and all those kinds of things, it doesn't hit the same way. And so that might have been one of the unforeseen things that early plebs didn't consider, is that yes, mainstream adoption means maybe a watering down of the effects of Bitcoin on the individual. Now, societally, like greater Bitcoin adoption will have positive effects, but in the meantime, the personal adjustments that we hope that people make because Bitcoin has changed their perspective on things, it might not be quite the same when you're getting some BlackRock ETF. Just might not hit the same.
Yeah, and it is weird because we're in this weird space right now of, it's obviously like you guys said. It's funny because I think I was interviewing Jeff Booth a couple months ago, and I thought of it. It was one of the things we talked for like 2 hours about this very topic, because my analogy was, we can't be like little elves at the North Pole and just like building away on Bitcoin, and then like 10 years from now we show up and like tell the world, hey, you got to use our thing, and here it is. Like, we're the plebs, and like, here it is. So you're going to have this marriage, right? Like, where you have to, it's for everyone, it's permissionless. So, how do you, do that? And again, things like what you guys are doing, building in these communities, because I would love your guys' thoughts on just like the citadels. Bitcoiners talk about citadels. We have our old cities. We've Trump and Elon talked about freedom cities. Bitcoiners talk about citadels. You're going to have more people building software, to your point, Matteo. You're going to have all these things happening where people have the means then to then go in and start building things, because I feel like we're in this weird bridge time where people are kind of waiting around. It feels like there's a lot of waiting, a lot of like, people don't have the wealth yet, like we want to do things, or people want to do stuff, but it's not quite there. Is that how it feels to you guys to a degree?
Yeah, I think so. And I think the difference between the OG whales that got rich off of Bitcoin, and certainly this isn't all of them, the difference between the OG whales getting hundreds of millions of dollars from Bitcoin valuation and stuff like that versus the second generation of plebs that are going to accumulate wealth because of Bitcoin. Our generation of Bitcoiners it's going to do really well for us, but we're not going to be billionaires from it. Likely many people that got in the 2014 to 2020 time span. And so you're not going to have FU money. You're not going to have retirement money in the way that I think a lot of OGs were just like sailing off into the sunset. They didn't necessarily, some of them, I don't want to speak broadly, but I think there are plenty of accounts of OG whales that were just like, yeah, I'm just retired now at 40 or whatever it happens to be. Our generation is different. It's not going to be retirement money. It's going to be build money. It's going to be, I have capital to now do things. I need this capital to either continue to appreciate as Bitcoin, or I need to make it work for me at, in business or in helping build the ecosystem. So it's a different. So I think we see more widespread building because of the second generation, the OG version 2 Bitcoiners, which history will probably all lump all those in together, but there will be a clear distinction between the people that were, they had 5,000 Bitcoin from 2011 versus the guy that has 40 Bitcoin or 20 Bitcoin or 4 Bitcoin or whatever, 0.5 Bitcoin. Like, that's a completely different scale. That guy will still have buying power, to your point, in the economy. He will still be a mover or shaker in the economy, but he doesn't get to exit the economy. He still has to participate. And that's what we want. I think that's actually kind of the sweet spot.
Yeah, I mean, I agree 100% with Brian. For the Citadel, it's funny because when I got into Bitcoin, which was like 2017, 2018, I was like, oh yeah, the Citadel is such a cool idea. We can just hang out together. But at the end of the day, it's like, do you really want to isolate yourself from society and just go live in a, island in the middle of nowhere? I don't think that's what we really want as Bitcoin. It's like, we believe that sound money create sound societies, right? A better world. And if you just retreat with your bros on an island, like, what are you achieving? Nothing. I think it's better to kind of like, infiltrate. I don't know if that's the right word, like kind of like commingled with the rest of society and, and evangelize. Somebody should write a book about evangelizing in Bitcoin.
Great title.
Could be called, Bitcoin Evangelist. I don't know. Oh, I didn't know that.
You owe me 5 cents for that royalty right there.
So, I think it's, I definitely, for me, there was a change in perspective from, I want to just with my Bitcoin friends to, I want to have Bitcoin friends and then go together into the world. Like, for example, I've been trying to orange pill this place that I go buy the bread, right? Now, and I know it has a Square, and now Square have launched the Bitcoin POS that you can just, and I've been trying. I send him the YouTube link to kind of go through the settings, and he hasn't done it yet. But it's, for me, it's more fun, and it's not just fun. It's more important that we go and orange pill others than just being retreated in in an island. So it's a cool concept. I don't think it's the right path forward for Bitcoiners.
I remember hearing a story, I don't know, probably when I was in high school or college or something like that about, and it really impacted me as far as my outlook on business and whether I wanted to pursue business as a solo entrepreneur or have business partners in my ventures and things like that, or participate in business ventures like Club Orange, where I'm, a piece of it, right? It was the story of Jerry Buss, who was the kind of like the Lakers owner from like 1979 to whatever time in the 2000s, most famous Laker owner of all time, built the dynasty, that sort of thing, right? The way he accumulated the wealth to be able to buy the Lakers at some point was that he and a group of friends, and this is back in probably the 1940s or 1950s or whatever it was, but they saved, I think it was like $30 a week, which was like a pretty substantial amount of money for that time. But him and a group of people pooled $30 a week, and they decided, hey, we're all going to do this for 18 months, and then we're going to buy a small apartment complex. They did that. The power of them working together and like commingling their skills, and they enabled them to buy their first apartment complex, which they parlayed that into a second and a third. And then they ended up accumulating enough wealth and building an empire to where he became wealthy enough to buy the LA Lakers, and then did the same thing, continued to establish that dynasty using other people and in his network and stuff. And so people can build these truly amazing things, and it's almost always because they're part of a network. They're a part of commingling their skills with other people. And so to me, it's like, man, my inherent flaws in an individual are pretty drastic and pretty gaping. Like I'm totally insufficient to build something great, but I know that I am good at a few things. And I see that in the Bitcoin community. I think Bitcoiners are beginning to put their resources together and build pieces in chunks. Like Matteo, very passionate about connecting people and facilitating people. Hey, do you know this guy? Do you know this guy? Hey, you need this. He needs this. Let's get you guys together. That is like in Matteo's DNA. And that manifested in this social network where tens of thousands of people connect all over the world. And so we're seeing Bitcoiners do that. Yes. So yes, I think that's going to materialize in citadels and in freedom cities, or, those types of things, but maybe not a freedom city in the sense that like its actual laws and governance are Bitcoin codes of ethics, but there's just enough Bitcoin influence in those cities that they're able to have a sway in terms of voting, or they're able to have a voice or some sort of representation. That to me is like kind of the dream come true. That is the Jerry Buss going from like saving $30 a week to buying the LA Lakers. If we can exert influence, and I think we did to some degree in the 2024 election, right? Trump had to come and speak at a Bitcoin conference. And so that shows that the president of the United States, the most powerful person on the planet, had to come and speak to this cohort of people. And so we're on the right track. It would be the biggest shame in the world, though, if we lost sight of that, if we thought that we were already in the end zone. We've all seen the guy that like he has wide open field and then he fumbles the ball because he was showboating. He didn't realize there was a guy on his tail, and then the guy swats the ball out of his hand, and he had the wide open end zone and doesn't score, right? He doesn't get the 6. And we are in danger of doing that as Bitcoiners if we take our eye off the prize, because it is not a foregone conclusion. Matteo, I think, has historically been somebody that said that a lot. Even when we're on like one of these hype shows where we're talking about, oh, Bitcoin's going to go to $10 gajillion. Matteo's always been the guy like, hey, I think it could, but I also see that there's a path where we don't get there because the ball is in our hands. So I think history will look back on this generation and see what we did. And so it's not just about like, hey, are you going to get rich? Hey, are you going to be able to pass on wealth to your kids? It's like, hey, what are they going to be saying about us and our generation 200 years from now? This will be written about one way or the other. I sure as heck hope that it is with a nice perspective on the amount of freedom and sway we were able to kind of exert on mainstream society.
All right, real talk for a second. We all know health insurance is basically a fiat system of healthcare. The biggest debauchery there is. It's expensive, confusing. Somehow you still end up paying hundreds of dollars for a Band-Aid. We moved to crowd sharing almost 5 years ago. It's the best decision we ever made. Instead of sending your money to the insurance company's black hole, you join a like-minded community that directly funds each other's medical bills. Simple, transparent, way cheaper, and that difference you save, you can invest in Bitcoin. It's an amazing win-win. And look, we're part of the Bitcoin community because we believe in freedom, decentralization. Crowd Health brings that same mindset to healthcare. You choose your doctor, you pay in cash, and the community's got your back when the big bills hit. No networks, no middlemen, no bureaucrats trying to approve your care, just people helping people the way it should be. You make decisions about your health. That's as sovereign as it gets. So if you're ready to take the orange pill for your health, this open enrollment, go to Join Crowd Health to get started for $99 for your first 3 months using code Brandon at joincrowdhealth.com. That's joincrowdhealth.com, code Brandon. Crowd Health is not insurance. Opt out. Take your power back. This is how we win. Generational wealth doesn't happen by accident. Bitcoin fixed the money, but it didn't fix the system of protecting and passing it on. Bitcoiners, we have to live in two different worlds, idealism versus pragmatism. That's where Meanwhile comes in. It's the world's first Bitcoin-denominated life insurance company, regulated in Bermuda and built entirely by Bitcoiners for Bitcoiners. With Meanwhile, long-term holders can grow and protect their Bitcoin wealth through tax-free policy loans, no repayment obligation, no margin call risk, while making inheritance simple and secure and entirely in Bitcoin. It's about sovereignty, stewardship, and building a legacy that lasts centuries. Because if Bitcoin is forever, your plan should be too. Learn more and sign up with code 4QPBWC at meanwhile.bm. That's meanwhile.bm, code 4QPBWC, or just sign up in the link in the description below. That is so well said. And it's, man, it segues into my next question, which was, at what point do people wake up? For context, I think it's max pain. Like, I think it's a lot of pain people are going to need. I just think, like Gladstein's book of, check your financial privilege. We have a lot of that going on in the world. Unfortunately, it's a hopeful thing at the end of the day. We know which direction this is going. You guys have talked about this. I mean, we know which direction things are going, no matter which way Bitcoin goes. They're going to keep printing. It's going to keep getting crazier, more social unrest. And then Bitcoin just keeps sucking in all of the BS. And I would just love your thoughts on that, because I do think we are, again, you guys do talk about this a lot, and it's like we're at the end zone in the last 2 years. This is why I was asking that as well. It feels like the ETFs, the Donald Trump stuff, everyone, Bitcoiners wanted to be like, oh yeah, this is great. Like, we won, guys. It only took 15 years. Like, this is great. I got in here a year ago, or I got in here 5 years ago. Look at that. We win. Haha. And here we are, cutscene, and we're nowhere near the finish line. And I think that's the wake up that a lot of people are having right now. There's a lot of pain coming for the rest of society as well on top of that. I would love your thoughts.
I mean, yeah, it's for sure your expectation should be adjusted, and you should embrace a low time preference when it comes to all things Bitcoin, including the speed at which is adopted by the majority of the people. You don't need everybody. You need, 10, 20, 30% of the people. Maybe we are at 2%, 3% now. So it's a long way to go before, Bitcoin is actually everyday money or a global reserve currency, whatever you think is the finishing line it's definitely not gonna happen in like tomorrow. There's no Omega candle coming to save us. I can tell you that. Sorry, Samson, but it's gonna be a grind. But in a way, if it wasn't a grind, I don't think it would work. Honestly, if you really think that next month Bitcoin is $1 million and you think that's gonna be good, I disagree completely. It would be like everybody was, everybody. So everybody that was, so I read a tweet recently that was very interesting. Like in 10, 15 years from now, right? How many of the people that bought Bitcoin before the ETF are still gonna be in Bitcoin? Maybe not a lot. Like who's gonna be the bearer of the ethos of Bitcoin when everybody's buying Bitcoin through an ETF? So it's good that it takes time, because then you can educate people. They can read the books, they can listen to the podcast, they can digest the information, they can go to the conference when Bitcoin is $15,000, not when it's $1 million, right? So I think it's kind of like in a way it's kind of like the perfect sound, that it just grind up and goes down a little bit, then goes up a lot more, but it's not just explosive, like 6 months from 100 to 1 million. I think that if that happened, I think it would be actually not good at all. So, adjust your expectation, lower your time preference in all things in Bitcoin, and do whatever you can to help the cause, whether it's building an app, doing a podcast, writing a book, going to a meetup, spending some Bitcoin to a merchant. There's so many things you can do. It's tweeting about it, posting Instagram stories. It's literally endless. The avenue that somebody can take to promote Bitcoin. So I think that's what I would encourage people listening to do, honestly.
Yeah, in jiu-jitsu, I tell my students that the type of progress you want is painful progress. You will get to black belt someday if you are willing to endure painful progress. We've seen it lots of times where these guys come in, they were high school wrestlers or Division I wrestlers, which is a very it's a very fine skill. I have a great admiration for wrestling. It's a great martial art. It takes a lot of physical discipline, but there is something the day in and day out grind of jiu-jitsu with chokeholds and arm bars and more joint manipulations and things like that. There is a lot of safe ways to train, but you're just inevitably going to have it's just a more brutal sport in some ways. And somebody might disagree with that, but the guys that come in and are these amazing wrestlers, and other guys start at the same time as them. So there's like Joe Blow, 40-year-old off of his couch that is also a day one white belt. And then you got like Division I wrestler that's also day one in jiu-jitsu. And the day one wrestler is just obliterating everybody that's at his level. And he's so good that he becomes bored with how good he is. And so he steps back. He stops training quite as much. But then that 40-year-old guy, he's 41, 42 years old now, and he's been training 5 days a week or 3 days a week. And all of a sudden, that wrestler comes back in for another round a year later, and he goes with that 40-year-old guy that couldn't hang with him last year. And the 40-year-old guy will just annihilate him. Like it's like a boy and a man wrestling together, and the previous newbie is now dominating the guy that came in with all these skills, because the guy that came in with all the skills, it was too easy for him at first, and he lost interest in it. He didn't go through the same progression that he went through in wrestling, and so it just changes his perspective. I think that the filter I try to use for what Matteo's talking about with the Bitcoin thing outside of a jiu-jitsu reference is, imagine if everybody in society won the lottery tomorrow. Would that be a good thing or a bad thing for society? I think it's like very, very clear that everybody winning the lottery tomorrow, or say 1 in 10 people winning the lottery tomorrow, would that be a good thing? No, it would be a truly bad thing for society if a lot of people came into an absurd amount of money that they did not have to painfully get. And so when somebody painfully progresses into wealth, I trust that person with what they're going to do with their wealth. When somebody's handed $1 million check, they might do something good with it, but overwhelmingly, they're probably going to do something pretty bad with it, or they're going to piss it away, or they're going to use it inefficiently, whatever. And so if we want a brighter Bitcoin future, to Matteo's point, we have to be willing to endure. There are going to be some people that are lucky. They're going to buy, and then, a year later, Bitcoin goes to the moon. Sure, that kind of thing can happen. Do I think it's going to happen that way? No, probably not. If you want to get into Bitcoin, be willing to endure painful progress.
What are you guys fearful of Bitcoin? We kind of touched on some of these things in a roundabout way throughout this, but are things maybe big or small that you're fearful of? Or we could say, maybe some of the things you're excited about, like in terms of Bitcoin. We kind of touched on a little bit of all this, but what do you guys, both of you specifically, think about? Like, hey, I'm really excited about this, or this is something I'm worried about in your eyes?
Well, I have a controversial opinion, very controversial opinion when it comes to this stuff. I think everybody's worried about the money centralization and the node centralization, but nobody is worrying or even thinking it's a problem custody centralization. Meaning, every time sellers buy 1,000 Bitcoin, there is 1,000 whole corners that will never exist again. Or they used to be, they don't exist now, and they won't be exist in the future. And so then you have, let's say Saylor gets to 1 million Bitcoin, which I think is very likely. Then the ETF and the Coinbase and all this. I think we're going to be in a place where there's a lot of concentration of custody. And then, the argument is, well, but Bitcoin is not proof of stake, it's proof of work. So it doesn't really matter whether who owns the Bitcoins, which I don't think is true at all. Now, although obviously Bitcoin is not a proof of stake protocol, I think even though it's a proof of work, there is always a component of proof of stake, meaning the guy with 1 million Bitcoin and the guy with 0.1 Bitcoin, they do not have the same influence over the network. And I think that's pretty obvious once you put it that way. Like in an economic network, as which is Bitcoin, whoever owns the biggest economic mass has some influence over the network. Like without being too technical, if there is a hard fork, it matters what the guy with 1 million Bitcoins think. Actually, it's not. It doesn't matter as much. It's not one vote essentially. Also, there is a problem with the fees and the blockchain being, limited. You can only do 200 million transactions a year, which most people don't know this thing. Like you can only have on the on chain 200 million transactions per year. So there's 300 million people in the United States alone, plus other merchants. So essentially, the point is there are, I don't want to go into many details, but the custody centralization, I think it's could be a problem. And we're all about decentralization, but somehow we don't care about centralization when it comes to custody, which, in my view, it's even more important than the mining, because the mining, which is already kind of centralized, right? There's 3-4 miners, and then they use these mining pools. Mining is already centralized, and as far as I know, there's never been one transaction that has been censored in the Bitcoin network ever. So even with the centralized mining, it's not a big deal as much as people want to believe, because at the end of the day, the miners are kind of the slave of the networks. They just, the margin is so little, and they have to get the fees anyway. That would be my controversial kind of opinion, is that custody centralization is a much bigger threat than almost anything else to Bitcoin.
And that's why Matteo thinks that there should be a redistribution of wealth, right? Saylor should just airdrop everybody, or what?
I mean, in a Bitcoin world, Saylor would have to spend the Bitcoin to buy the yacht. That's the point,
Mm-hmm.
That's the point.
Yeah.
But in a fiat world, you can go and borrow and leverage the Bitcoin to get more fiat, then use the fiat to get more Bitcoin, then he has more Bitcoin to leverage, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. Sorry, really quick, Brian. I would love your thoughts. Have you watched any of the Simon Dixon stuff recently over the last few months? And any of his content or anything? Okay. All right. Just go. Forget I said that. No. Okay. Yeah, so the Simon Dixon stuff, which is, you guys know his history, obviously. He's, OG, Bank to the Future, all this stuff. And then, went down some different rabbit holes and, did his thing. But now, seemingly the last, year or two, whatever it is, but the last couple months, he's been putting out a lot of content, a lot of YouTube stuff, and basically going in and just attacking the hell out of Bitcoin treasury companies, kind of the global system, how the whole, proof of weapons network, he calls it, the technological network, and then the financial network, basically these networks and how they all operate together. And his whole thing is, now, like, again, he's like, I've made some mistakes, Celsius or some of these different things. I've been largely right, but the best way to do this is to have your Bitcoin, study Bitcoin, put in self-custody, and defund the system, use no leverage, do, all these things. So you can see some of these characters, even from the past, coming back and being like, whoa, like, what is going on? Like, we need to kind of reinsert or like reassert these values that we had for a long time that we've kind of lost our way to a degree. So anyway, that's kind of what he's been on this rampage really for the last number of months, going on tons of interviews, espousing that, spaces, everything. So it's been very interesting.
That's interesting. I think my concern for Bitcoin kind of comes out of it's the same vein. It's just kind of maybe attacking it made at a more micro level. I think that it's incredibly important for Bitcoiners to try and spend Bitcoin. When it stays in an economy and it's not going back out to fiat rails, you're kind of having the power of 2 or 3. You're having a much greater power on the price of Bitcoin, because you're enabling other people to not have to get out of Bitcoin into fiat for the things that they need or the things that they want in their life. And I don't think that we should hold whether forever. I think there is an appropriate time to sell your Bitcoin, and it's when you want to buy something that's adding value to your life, or it's something that provides a need for you or your family. I think that's the appropriate time to sell Bitcoin. I just hope that when people need to do that, they're just exchanging it for the good itself, rather than having to transition into fiat and then transition, use the fiat to buy the thing. And to Matteo's point about that, is if Michael Saylor, if there was an avenue, not that he would necessarily need it, I guess he could go buy a yacht with his Bitcoin, right? But if people that had substantial portions of Bitcoin were able to spend large sums of Bitcoin just in the Bitcoin economy, it would ensure that Bitcoiners are the ones that are benefiting from the prosperity of that, as opposed to giving, spending your Bitcoin to some guy who's selling a yacht that's just going to turn around and he's going to turn it into cash, right? Like, we can kill a lot of sell orders just by exchanging our Bitcoin with one another. And it starts, it sounds like a tall task for a lot of people to spend their Bitcoin. So don't spend your Bitcoin, just accept Bitcoin. Put on X that you're the Bitcoin podcaster, or you're the Bitcoin plumber, or you're the Bitcoin tech repair guy, or you're the Bitcoin X, Y, or Z, the Bitcoin data entry guy, or the Bitcoin video editor, whatever it is. Just accept Bitcoin, because once you've earned a little bit of Bitcoin, it's actually easier to spend those sats rather than the ones that you bought with fiat. Those can be your spending sats. And there tends to be a little bit of inertia that happens when we do that. And my theory, I think it's played out with everybody I've ever talked to on it, is those who spend Bitcoin in the Bitcoin economy tend to stack more sats. In the fiat economy, if you're doing it right, you earn more fiat at the end of the month than you spend. That's what we're taught. Dave Ramsey's taught us that we should bring in more money than we spend. Well, the same should be true in the Bitcoin economy. If you're providing value to the economy and you're fiscally prudent, you should be earning more sats than you're spending. So you're doing a service to the Bitcoin economy by spending some sats, but you're doing a service to yourself and your family by accruing more sats than you started with, because you've provided value to other people. That's what those extra sats represent, is the extra value you've provided to the network. So I think it checks off the box for the mission to spend and actually stack more sats. But I see a future where people have lost the concept of using Bitcoin as money, not as a savings tool, but as a spending tool. And I think that would be a pretty sad future if we ever got there. And somebody needed to resist government oppression to feed their family, or to keep homeschooling their kids, or whatever they wanted to do. But they didn't know anybody that accepted Bitcoin. They had Bitcoin, but could not spend it. And they were already flagged because they didn't vaccinate their kid, or they didn't do X, Y, or Z. And so they're actually not permitted to sell their Bitcoin through Coinbase, or they're not permitted to sell through whatever exchange they use. So they literally just have this asset that they're not allowed to use back in fiat, and they don't know anybody with whom they can spend it. That would be a travesty. And so, yes, that's hypothetical and theoretical, but I think Jack Dorsey's echoed the same sentiment. And there's plenty of people in Bitcoin that are concerned about that possible reality. And I don't sit around doom and gloom all the time. I think that the things that we're doing at Club Orange, and that's why I wrote the book Parallel, is to try and make that case, is for Bitcoiners to see the value in it. And quite frankly, it's fun. It is fun to spend Bitcoin with people. It is a really kind of enriching activity. So, I mean, that's my concern. I don't lose sleep every night over it, but I do lose sleep some nights because of it.
There's one thing more important than Bitcoin: the time you have and the people and relationships you build. In a world full of noise, the real signal is meeting with other Bitcoiners IRL, finding Bitcoin-only events, connecting face-to-face, and supporting the circular economy through Bitcoin-friendly merchants around the world. That's exactly what Club Orange is built for. Build your circle. Support Bitcoin-only companies. The only place in the world you can find all that in one spot is the Club Orange app on iOS or Android. Go to cluborange.org, what used to be the Orange Pill app, or scan the code here. Everything you are learning in this episode is completely moot and does not matter. If you hold Bitcoin and are still leaving it on an exchange or sharing keys and your KYC information with a third party, this is your wake-up call now. You are only self-sovereign if you alone hold the keys to your wealth. 100% self-custody sounds daunting at first. Believe me, I lost 2 years of massive gains over a decade ago because I was worried about taking the few minutes it took to understand self-custody. And that's exactly why you need to talk to my friends, Tony Yazbek and his team at the Bitcoin Way. We just interviewed Tony recently, has over 80,000 views, an overwhelming response. People love his story and the simplicity he shares of how easy it is to custody and take ownership of the greatest money we've ever seen. They'll train you to do it right the first time. Head on over to thebitcoinway.com/Brandon to schedule a free 30-minute consultation today. Their 5-star rated service is exactly what you need. Quit sitting on your hands like I did and get started today. Again, that's thebitcoinway.com/BRANDON. What do you guys think is the end game? So kind of wrapping around the value of Bitcoin. Again, I know Jeff Booth thinks it's going to account for everything in the world. Peter Dunworth, somehow the guy is way smarter than I am. It's going to be multiples of like all the assets in the world. Don't ask me how that's the case with credit or whatever. And you got like Jack Mallers, it's going to be 450 trillion, one half. You got people, it's going to account for what gold does. So again, at the risk of talking about the USD price of Bitcoin, this is obviously something that everyone, it doesn't matter who you are, thinks about a lot. And what is the end game though? And it could be 100 years from now or 1,000 years from now or whatever it is. But what do you think Bitcoin has to account for at the end of the day? And answer it how you want. But what is that end state for Bitcoin where that black hole has to suck in what amount of assets? What is it going to be sucking in at the end of the day? Its final resting spot.
Well, you can think of in decades when it comes to the price. So, for example, I would say we're gonna go from one order of magnitude to another each decade. So the 2020 would be 100K. The 2010 was 1K and 10K. So 10K in 2010, 100K in 2020s. Then the 2030s would be the 1 million, 2 million, 3 millions, and then the 2040 would be like the 10 millions, kind of orders of magnitude. In terms of price, I think that would be my expectation. In terms of what is the kind of the end goal here, I would say, I don't know, global reserve currency would be nice. I don't know if this governments are ever going to give up, the money printer. I think it's hard to see that happening, at least anytime soon. But it could be that, kind of Bitcoin leaves parallel to fiat currency, where people just earn Bitcoin, spend Bitcoin, save Bitcoin. They use it as money, as gold used to be, let's say, and slowly you can see a transfer of energy / capital from the fiat world to the Bitcoin world. But that would take, that's gonna take decades. Sorry, it's gonna take a long time. Just because humans, it's hard to change human structures. It's very hard to change them. But eventually, I think there is a possibility that Bitcoin becomes either the global reserve currency or the day-to-day medium of exchange unit of account. I think that would be the end goal. I think that would be like, okay, then we can say we won. If we get that, if you go to the grocery store and the cashier tell you, yes, it's 1,000 cents the bread, then you can go on Twitter and say, we won. Until then, there's a lot of work to do.
That's the silver lining.
I vehemently disagree with Matteo. I think it's going to be 90 days and it's going to be 10 million. No, I'm just, but you know what? And that's fine. If Matteo wants to agree with the great philosopher Bill Gates, that we overestimate what we can do in a year and we underestimate what we can do in 10 years, that's fine. He agrees with Bill Gates. Totally fine. Whatever. I take a different approach.
Shots fired.
I think that if you go back and you look at the history of currency debasement and where things ran hot into hyperinflation, it is super slow and then it is all at once. And that's how it tends. There's manageable inflation and then there's unmanageable inflation. When you look at, I think it was the Reichmark when it had its, by 1919, end of World War. When did World War I end? Did it start in 1919 or?
I think it was 1919. Yeah, no, I think it ended 1919. Yeah,
into the 1919, right? So hyperinflation was running kind of end of World War I is when that cycle kicked off. I believe the Reichmark at the time of World War I ending in 1919 was something like 3 or 4 to 1 of the US dollar. So if you're correlating to US dollar is 3 or 4 times less valuable than the US dollar, at the end of that 4 years, 1923, 1924, at the end of that hyperinflationary cycle, so only 3 or 4 or 5 years later, the rent or the Reich mark, I believe, was something like 1 trillion to 1. So it went from in 1919, 3 or 4 to 1 to 1 trillion to 1 in a few year cycle. Sure, World War I was a black swan event. It was a cataclysmic event for the world. So you could say that that's not a relevant type of comparison. But I think that you can go back and you can see these types of cliffs that happen in currency debasement. I think the consistent thread that you notice through these is people don't tend to think of our expenses, my personal cash flow. I don't think of what I'm losing annually and in terms of a personal budget. And certainly the average person doesn't. So right now we calculate inflation on an annual basis. I lost 2% to inflation or 4%. Well, say inflation's bad and you lost 7% to inflation. Well, guess what? That's not even 1% per month. Americans don't care about anything that is less than 1% a month. The world doesn't care about anything that's less than 1% per month. But when you get to the point where there's a monthly inflation of at least a single digit or greater, and it is now a line item to your monthly cash flow, I believe that's where people perk up. So if 1919 was kind of the post World War I and people started to look at the value of the Reich mark at that time, it was 1920 when people started to see it as a monthly expense. It was 1920, there was the later half of 1920 when they started to see it as a weekly expense. If you go from something being an annual expense to a monthly expense to now a weekly expense, that predicates a total radical shift in how people view that dollar or that asset. And so I think that's why it happens so fast, is because it then becomes a budget line item for your month. And then when your monthly budget becomes a weekly budget, that is a massive problem, and people will run for the exits faster than ever because of those things. So I think the presence of Bitcoin in those hyperinflationary times or in those super inflationary times, people will run to the most sound money that they can. And that's part of that painful progress that we were talking about. I think this is the good thing. Bitcoin has had time to germinate, has had time to educate people. All of my friends who do not like Bitcoin right now, if inflation was 2% or 5% for them per month, they would absolutely know that Bitcoin is a viable option. They don't get it yet because they don't feel it on the inflation. That's fine. They do fine in the fiat world. But if it was costing them money monthly, they would absolutely understand. They know, they've been told that Bitcoin is the exit plan. They just don't see the personal need for it. But they will know when that time comes. They've already been educated on it. The gun is loaded in terms of Bitcoin's potential to alert the world. It's just the enacting event hasn't quite happened yet. And I believe, and again, I think the enacting event is a monthly inflationary expense over a single digit. 1%, 2%, 3% per month inflation is where people start to account that into their budget.
I would love for you guys to touch on a little bit of what people can do in the app, obviously, and how it's connecting people and kind of what's going on, and then maybe even some of the mission, the projects. You don't have to unveil maybe everything, or you can if you want, I guess, but just some of the things you have, kind of looking forward into the future here.
Well, speaking of survival, there's actually a great story that happened to me 1 year ago. So I'm in Los Angeles. So we had these huge fires, and we had to evacuate. My wife was 7 months pregnant, so you can imagine how fun that was. And I ended up staying at somebody on Club Orange guest house.
Wow.
He reached out to me. I have friends in LA, obviously, but they're all in LA, and the fires are in LA. I'm like, what's the point of evacuating from LA to LA? So a guy reached out to me and said, hey, man, if you need, I have a guest house, an hour north of LA, right? So yeah, so what you said is absolutely, it's absolutely true. In crisis, people, it's number one priority. And there's a lot of stories. People get married. There used to be an NBA champion inviting people to the games. All kind of stories. In terms of the mission, I think Brian can double click on that, and then we can talk maybe about what's coming next.
Yeah, that's where like I said, I got passionate about what we were doing with Club Orange from the very beginning, and it was the best businesses or the best software or the best applications or whatever are things that solve problems, right? Like that's inherently what they have to do. And so I saw that need as a Bitcoiner. I'd been in Bitcoin since 2014, 2013. So, I mean, somewhere in that ballpark. And There just wasn't. I mean, you even go back and look at the old Andreas Antonopoulos Bitcoin education seminars that he was doing. He was speaking to an empty room of people. There was just not a social layer for Bitcoin at that time. And it's still, I mean, like the social layer has come a long way, but we were talking off air too, Brandon, about like how many Bitcoiners do you think that are legit Bitcoin maxis, but like really don't know other Bitcoiners? I think that's a massive problem. And not just will it make the price of Bitcoin go up. That's not my concern. The price of Bitcoin, whether Bitcoiners take it and run with it and do what we should with it, or whether the ETFs take over and BlackRock rules the world, either way, the price of Bitcoin's going up. I'm not saying it's a good world where BlackRock does it. I'm just saying like the price of Bitcoin, it's going to go up. It's finite, yada, 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 all those types of things. If we want Bitcoin to thrive in a freedom maximalist way, it's really important that Bitcoiners connect. So whether you're super idealistic or you just want to have more fun in Bitcoin, I mean, those two problems are massive. Everybody wants real life experiences. The best things that happen in your life are real life experiences. These things are fun. I genuinely enjoy talking to you through video, but I've also hung out with you in real life. This experience is X. The in real life experience is X plus Y. And when you can do something that's fun, that also has mission meaning behind it, you've really put something in a like lightning in a bottle that is, I believe, actually like transformative for the world. And so the more we can connect Bitcoiners to have fun, the more we've established meaningful friendships and economic relationships. It would be sad if someday, 50 years from now, there's 50 million Bitcoiners in the world and none of them know each other. That'd be a travesty. Like, how does a Bitcoiner use Bitcoin if he doesn't know any other Bitcoiners? That's an inherent problem. If I want to maximize my freedom, if I want to maximize the things that Bitcoin can do for me, I need to know other Bitcoiners. If I want to someday feed my family with Bitcoin, I need to know a farmer who accepts Bitcoin. If I want to be able to fix a leak in my house, I need to know a plumber that takes Bitcoin. And guess what? I found those types of people on Club Orange because that's where they exist. And so whether it's me getting to hang out with my buddy and have a good time, or me making economic connections with people that are enduring important connections for the mission focused things in my life, it checks off every one of those boxes. It does it in a fun way and it does it in a practical way. I can't think of a better solution for Bitcoiners. And it's I think quite important.
So cool. So what are some of the features? And we were just, Matteo, we were just saying that, like, what can people do? And meaning, like, you just touched on that. Is it, going to be, a Bitcoiner jobs type of world, the Angie's List, where people can connect? We can start meetup groups. We can help each other. We can just meet people. Like, what can people do now? And then what are some of the things you guys are looking to going forward?
Yeah, I mean, it's the kind of the core features of the app has been the same since the beginning. Which is like mostly like you can think of like three things, right? You can find other Bitcoiners that are local to you, whether you're traveling or your hometown. So we use this approximate geolocation to show you nearby Bitcoiners, right? So that's the number one thing. So you can meet them, you can network, you can go for coffee, go for whatever you want to do. Then the second thing is the events. So you can find all the events. You can create an event. Each event has its own group chat. So for example, I'm going to be in El Salvador in 2 weeks, I guess. First time finally. And I'm going to have a meetup at a pizza place that somebody told me they take Bitcoin. I've never been there in El Salvador. I hope it's true. And, you can create an event and there's RSVP. People can join the group chat. So events is the second pillar of the app. And then the third one is merchants. So you can create an account as a merchant. Again, geolocation, see who's nearby, people, Bitcoiners that want to spend sats, that want to support Bitcoin business. They can come and, give you the business, spend sats. And then kind of like the fourth leg, although it's not really a leg, it's more like a layer, we have the wallet. So we built a wallet almost 1 year ago. And the reason is because I found out that even on Club Orange, which is like paid only, no free trials, right? Never had a free trial in 3 years. And now we have 19,000 members. Maybe about 80% of the people on Club Orange did not know what the Lightning Network was. Or maybe they knew about it, they never used it, they didn't have a wallet. So for a while I was like, okay, download Wallet of Satoshi, and then Wallet of Satoshi, they left the US. And I'm like, I can't teach 10,000 people how the Lightning Network works. So I'm just going to build a wallet. I'm going to give it to everybody by default. So we launched this wallet February of 2025. And then somebody said to me, you know what, it would be really cool. And I was like, yeah, what's that? You could zap people based on their location, because we had the location, the approximate location, right? So I said, oh, that's a good idea. So we built this thing called GeoZapping, which is now is 97% of all the sats sent through the app is through GeoZapping. And the way it works is actually it's so simple that people sometimes that they can't find it. So you go to your wallet, you click send, right? And then when you click send, you can pay an invoice, you can pay a LN URL, you can zap another user, right? You can type Brandon Gentile, or you can type a city, a state, a country, a continent. So you can just type locations around the world. You can literally type any city, any country. And then if we have members in that location, you can then zap them all at once. And you can add a message and you can add a link. So it's really cool. For example, right? So I'm going to be in El Salvador. Never been, I don't know anybody there. I'm going to GeoZap El Salvador with the link to my meetup that I'm going to do for the conference. So everybody in El Salvador on the app automatically going to find out about the event, and they get some sats. So the cool thing is that you can spam people in a lot of ways. Emails, LinkedIn, Twitter, whatever, Nostr, But when you actually add some value with sats, it changes everything. Because now people say, "Oh, who sent me these 10 sats? What did it kind of grabbed the attention. And also, it's kind of like a value for value. Okay, I'm gonna give you my 5 seconds of attention because you gave me 10 sats, right? So it's a really nice way of, and I think in a way it's kind of like in a Bitcoin world where there is no more money printing, everything needs to be exchanged for value, because there's no such thing as printing money and extracting wealth without creating any value. And so, the wallet is like, we've done almost 4 million transactions in 11 months. So it's really cool.
Yeah. Well, and it receiving the sats not only does it act as a monetary filter, but like Matteo mentioned earlier, there's such a small percentage of Bitcoiners in the world that have ever used Lightning before or know what it is or how it functions. And so you're also engaging with somebody that is kind of like that second layer Bitcoiner. There's somebody who knows and uses Lightning. They actually know and use a very particular function of Lightning that exists only on Club Orange, that is this GeoZapping feature or this mass zapping feature. So it acts as a filter. You know that person has an inherent knowledge base of Bitcoin. They're on the level 3 or whatever because they use Lightning Network. And so it acts as a filter in multiple ways. And for somebody that works in Bitcoin, as somebody that sells, Bitcoin books and those types of things, that is a helpful filter for the people that I might spend my time engaging with or not. And most Bitcoiners understand the practical implications of the value of their time. We want high value relationships, and most of us don't want to doom scroll on the internet all day. And that's the beauty of Club Orange, is that it's very efficient at building real relationships without needing to be like on an app for 45 minutes and realize that you lost part of your life.
As I always say, you cannot go viral on Club Orange. All you can do is get a friend, find an event, find the merchant, send some stuff. There's no way to go viral.
unless you mass zap the entire world, then you're kind of viral. But you just gave everybody stats.
Well, and it's a great point too, because it's up to you, right? It's not like, so if you did that, it's up to you. Like, you can do what you wish, and it gives you that scale, that ability to do that very thing, but it's up to you. It's not like, oh, the internet or someone else has control of an algorithm or whatever.
You are the algorithm.
Yeah.
Like, how big do I want to go?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, such a great point. And the chat you guys have is amazing. And now with the wallet and the Zap, it is phenomenal. And that's again, as people start seeing this, I think of it like Bitcoin mining, like all these different things. And again, you look at like all the technologies, again, Brian, your book, like I was telling you offline, like your book does such a phenomenal job of like, I look at Club Orange, Bitcoin mining, some of these discoveries, inventions, these things that you talk about in your book that you wrote years ago, talking about these inventions. That would take years and decades for these things to come about and people to, realize what's actually happening and the beauty of what's happening. So whether it's, the wallet and the chat and the ease and just there's no algorithms pushing you into, rage baiting and all this different stuff. So how do you guys, envision the future a little bit and what you're planning for, but also how can it connect? I'm sure people would ask like, Nostr, Fountain, some of the other different things out there. How do you guys play off those different platforms and those different apps, and whether you can now or in the future?
Yeah, I mean, we have, so when it comes to Nostr, 1.5 years ago, we allowed people to use their MPub as a login, which makes the app even more private because, an email could be pretty private. You can just make one up, but an MPub is even more private. So you can now log in with Nostr through the app. And then another cool thing that we did with Nostr is now when somebody creates an event on Club Orange, we automatically publish on Nostr. So we have by far the largest database of Bitcoin events in the world. I think today we have 725. So on any given year, we have between 700, 800, 600, that range. And they're all published on Nostr. So people can go and grab those events and build an app for events on Nostr, right? Fountain, I love the Fountain guys. They do something else, podcasts we don't really do. There is no content in Club Orange to consume. It's a network. That's why it's not a social media, it's a social network, right? So, and in terms of like the roadmap, we just launched ticketing actually 2 days ago. So you can buy tickets for certain events. We just need to onboard more events. But the goal would be like in 6 months from now, when you go on Club Orange and you're about to go to you want to go to a conference. Number one, you can buy the tickets through the app without ever leaving the app. Number two, in Bitcoin. Obviously, we only take Bitcoin. We don't take the organizer take the sats, but we don't have fiat. And number three, we're gonna have the cheapest price ever because we have now so many users that we're negotiating like the lowest ticket price that you can find anywhere in the Bitcoin ecosystem will be through Club Orange. So then that kind of closed the loop of people, merchants, events, which is like our three kind of North Star. Like, and also you combine them together, you got this interesting network effects because you can be a merchant that go to a conference and then does a meetup, or does the networking, or use the group chats, or use the wallet, right? You can have a booth at the Bitcoin conference and use the Club Orange wallet to receive sats. So it's kind of like like a holistic social layer for Bitcoin, and we want to provide the technology that support the social layer of Bitcoin.
Yeah.
I was going to add to that is, and it couldn't come fast enough because it really seems like there is a resurgence in people finding value more than any time probably in the last 10 years in real life experiences. I think Bitcoiners and the Bitcoin event scene, the Bitcoin meetup space, all that is about 10 years ahead of the rest of the world in terms of planning events, making things happen in real life, because Bitcoiners a long time ago realized that we don't want to live online. We don't want to live connected. There's value in what we do online. We want to get in, we want to go to the show or the resource that I want to get my good quality information from, but then I want to go back into real life. And we need tools to be able to properly connect to real life, because we don't want to miss out on events. We don't want to miss out on the big events. We don't want to miss out on the local meetups. We want to be a part of those things. And unless you have a resource that's going to help you find those, then you're not going to get to participate in it. In the old model, there were the fiat on-ramps to events. And the problem with those was they don't distinguish between a Bitcoin event and a crypto event. And so the people that would run those events would say Bitcoin meetup, and then you're going to have to sit through a 45-minute Web3 presentation, and you just wasted your life. So you you went to a real life event because you don't want to waste your time online, but that you just went to a real life thing that wasted your time. It was no better than an online thing. And so people want really high quality in real life experiences. Bitcoiners have the high ground on this, and Club Orange is literally the portal into those things.
That's so cool. It's a great segue into getting into some of the, I guess maybe a little bit more of the current event stuff. However, I want to touch on really quick. I'm sure there would be some people, again, Bitcoiner world, of privacy concerns, the chat, things like that. I would love for you guys to touch on that really quick. Again, there's a lot of Bitcoiners that use Telegram, Signal, things like that. So, what does that look like from that perspective of, I guess, just privacy, type of world?
Yeah, we have, speaking of chats, we now have a lot of feature that pretty much is as kind of developed as the big boys, Telegram and the others. We have video calls, voice call, voice messages, video messages. You can have a poll inside a chat or a group chat. So we really have a lot of, in a way, we kind of like a messaging app, a social app, and then an events app and a wallet, all kind of like combined together. We don't do KYC. That's the number one thing. We don't do KYC. As Bitcoin Maxi, I would never build an app that does KYC. So anonymous as you want, use whatever name you want, whatever picture you want. And some people use their Brandon Gentile name, which maybe is true, maybe it's not. And their image and their picture of their face, which maybe is AI generated. We don't know. But so we basically leave the user the decision of how much they want to reveal, which is kind of like the ethos of privacy is not to be private. Is that you choose what and when and to who you want to reveal your information. And so, it's also, I don't think it would have worked any other way because obviously Bitcoiners are very privacy focused. So if we were doing KYC, I don't think we would have gone this far. So obviously privacy is everything we built is with privacy, the privacy first approach.
Yeah. And it's like Matteo said, you are the gatekeeper for yourself. And this has been true for Bitcoin forever. I never once, posted on X, hey, I'm going to be at this place at this time. But guess what? I do go to Bitcoin conferences where I am publicly around other people. So, so everybody inherently understands that there's a time to be private and there's a time to be public. And so that is your sovereign responsibility. And so to take that, so we are always encouraging Bitcoiners to take that seriously because it's something that needs to be considered. It's part of your responsibility. As Bitcoiners, we want more hard targets. We want more anti-fragility in Bitcoin. And so certainly that is a right full concern. And that was actually probably the first question that I ever asked Matteo as well. But being a non-KYC app is the foundation of every part of that. And
if everybody listening want to go and kidnap Brian, good luck to you.
Yeah, good luck. Good luck.
I don't know.
It helps being 6'5" and being black belt in jiu-jitsu, right? So that's
yeah, exactly. I don't know.
Oh man,
I'd love to see that.
Yeah. You can zap someone on Club Orange and pay someone to see that. Please do it. Let's see how that works. Sats bounty. Brian, you got to tell the story really quick of how this kind of came all about and how you guys came about.
Yeah. Well, I saw Matteo's booth because he was launching the app at Pacific Bitcoin 2022, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Sam Bankman-Fried gets arrested. And then Pacific Bitcoin happens. Completely irrelevant to each other. But it was just, that was the context for anybody that's been in the Bitcoin space. They remember that was like doom and gloom. And to me, that was a really enlightening couple of days because at that Bitcoin conference, my in real life Bitcoin friends who were kind of like the fly by night Bitcoiners, they're only checking price. They don't know anything else about Bitcoin. They were the ones that were, oh my gosh, I'm jumping ship. This is over. And so I'm in my personal circle. I wasn't super high on Bitcoin. I knew like, hey, guys, this happens. But I went to this conference where there was legit Bitcoiners, like in-person people. Everybody you talk to was really optimistic. It was either this is a great buying opportunity or who cares? Like this, it was one of those two perspectives. Nobody was down. Nobody was doom and gloom. And again, this was like the bottom of the last bear cycle. And I had seen Matteo's booth just walking around the conference multiple times. But every time I walked by, there was a line of people. And that's just, I'm not a big crowds kind of guy. I see this guy over there. I'm like, well, this guy whoever this guy is, I want to get the pitch from him. So I waited for somebody. There was some big speaker in the main hall, and so I waited for that. Didn't really care too much about the speaker. I went over to the Club Orange booth and talked to Matteo. And so I'm getting the pitch from Matteo, and you may meet Matteo in real life. He's very personable, very charismatic and charming. And so I'm getting like, man, okay, cool. If this guy's the founder, how cool is this? And then all of a sudden, I just become chop liver. Like he doesn't seem to care about me anymore. He's not focused on me. He starts talking to whoever's to my left, and this guy to my left just keeps like crowding me. I'm like, dude, come on, get away. Like I look over, and it's Michael Saylor, and Matteo's just giving his undivided attention for the Club Orange pitch to Michael Saylor. And so I'm like, okay, that's fine. I totally get it now. And sure enough, the girl that he had helping him with marketing says, hey, Michael, Matteo, why don't we get you guys a picture in front of the Orange Pill app? At the time, we were called Orange Pill app when it launched. Let's get a picture in front of the Orange Pill app sign. And that's great. And so they stand in front of the Orange Pill app sign. And the marketing girl says, hey, Brian, why don't you get in there too? I'm stoked. Like let me get into the picture with Michael Saylor and the founder of this Bitcoiner social media app. That seems cool to me. And so I'm 6'5". My dumb fat head just happened to be right in front of the Orange Pill app logo. So Matteo, on the weekend he launches, gets a photo op with the biggest name in Bitcoin. And me, who nobody knows who I am, my head's blocking the logo for Orange Pill app in the best photo op he's ever gotten. So when he posted the picture online, I saw it and I thought, oh my gosh, I am so sorry. So I reached out to Matteo. I'm like, hey man, I'm going to make this up to you. So I started tweeting about Orange Pill app. I was like, guys, this is it. This is what we've been waiting for. If you've been in Bitcoin, like this is the app, because nobody knows Bitcoiners in their neighborhood. Nobody knows Bitcoiners in their town. We always have to come to these conferences in order to find other Bitcoiners. Like we all paid hundreds or thousands of dollars to get to these conferences just because we're so desperate for Bitcoin friends. And guess what? There's an app that can let you do that. So I got the pitch and I felt so bad. I had to just shout from the mountaintops. Matteo's like, dude, this guy won't shut up about Orange Pill app. He reaches back out to me and says, hey, you're killing it with the promotion. Like you seem to get the mission of what we're doing here. Would you like to come on board? And I said, absolutely. So the rest is history. All during that week or that weekend, I was meeting Brandon and we were chatting, and it was just a surreal experience. And the surreal experience came because of being around real life Bitcoiners. And that's the common denominator, whether it was a big conference or it was the small group breakout type sessions. It was the personal connection with other people. And what do you know? Fast forward to 2026, we're Club Orange now, but we're doing the exact same thing in real life connections and really trying to change the face of Bitcoin.
Yeah, and I would love, Matteo, if you have any comments on that, I would love your thought, but also more importantly, that is a great segue into, you guys used to be the Orange Pill app at that time, and then now you guys have rebranded to Club Orange. So I would love for you to dive into, why the rebrand, what that all looks like, and just some of the mission going forward here.
I mean, that's a great story. I mean, it's I heard it many times, but every time I heard it, it's like, wow, what a story. I should have asked Saylor to be a marketing manager, though.
Especially early on, Matteo. You could have got him maybe like 4 years ago. Yeah,
exactly. You replace. No, I think it might be too busy. But yeah, I mean, it's all true. We launch. If you go back and look at the chart, I think we launched literally at the bottom of the last bear market, which was $15,600. So we launched on November. So it's, somebody's watching, they can go and check. November 9th, 2022, which was a Wednesday. FTX blew up on a Friday, so 5 days before. I was trying to get the app published in the App Store, and Apple rejected it 7 times the weekend before the launch. So I was literally with my developers like, okay, guys, we need to get this app approved because we already paid for the booth. We can't just show up with nothing. And so we eventually we figure out the time zone of the reviewer, and we time the updates so that we will get him at 9 in the morning. So we do all kind of crazy stuff. Anyway, we launched. We got Brian. We almost got Saylor, but at least he got in the picture.
Yeah.
And also you invited me to the 100K party, which was the top of the last bull market, just literally. Anyway, yeah. So we used to be Orange Pill Up, which my wife claims to be the owner of that name.
Mm.
I don't remember, but in case she was right, I changed the name. So then
the real story
so
comes
that's
out.
so just so I
Oh,
don't have
man.
to hear that anymore. All right, joking aside, no, the reason why we changed the name, as much as we loved it, is because I really kind of like was shocked of how many times and how many ways people would misspell everything but orange. So peel, which is PILL, comes from the Matrix. Everybody knows
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Would be misspelled PILLED or
Oh,
TILL,
wow.
and then
Huh.
the kind of the what is it called, the straw that broke the camel. I mean, I don't know. I was literally sitting next to somebody. Say, hey, yes, Orange Pill app. Go ahead and download it. And she goes on the App Store and she typed Orange Pill and then app UP. I'm like, that's impossible. Even app is getting misspelled.
I didn't know that one. I never heard that.
I'm like, incredible. It's incredible. So anyway, so and then like it's a very long name, 3 words. There are literally no successful business, especially in software, that have 3 words names, and it's like 13 letter. I actually it's kind of an art. It's kind of a science naming. I've done a lot of research. So you want to hit certain parameters. So anyway, eventually we landed on Club Orange, which I think is a great name. Also, funny enough, in the onboarding of the app, since day one, when you go through the onboarding, and then at some point you see that it's a paid app, right? Because we don't want to have the scammers, the spam, we don't want to do ads. We literally say we built a club for Bitcoiners. This has been always there. So the name was always there, waiting to be kind of like brought into the light. And so we rebranded 3 months ago, Club Orange. Everybody loves it. I literally haven't met anybody. Maybe they're just nice. I don't know, but I haven't met anybody that says I like Orange Pill better. So I think it's a great name, and it's the name we have now, and it kind of like it also it gives us an option to maybe do like more physical, actually real club, because we're all about physical in real life connections. We might or might not have Club Orange New York, Club Orange London. Who knows? We'll see.
Anything else you guys want to touch on? Anything at all? Where can people find you? It's an amazing talk. So where can people find you, and anything else we missed?
I'm on Club Orange all the time. ClubOrange.org is the website. You can download the app on App Store, Google Play Store. That's the easiest way to reach me is on Club Orange, and of course I'm on X. Matteo Pellegrini is my name. It's easy to find me. That's me.
All right. Same. Club Orange. It's just my name. I don't worry about using my real name on Club Orange because I know it's totally worth it. But reach out to me on Club Orange. Say that you came to us from this show, because we love to know where people came and signed up from, and I will zap you 1,000 sats just for saying hello and saying you came from Brandon's show. And that's all it takes. You can lie. You could have been on Club Orange already and just say you heard from Brandon's show, and I'm not going to fact check it. But Bitcoiners are honest; they wouldn't do that, so I'm not worried about it.
I will double Brian offer. It count to another 1,000 sats if you DM me and you say you come from this.
This
show.
is literally a get rich quick scheme. We're pitching on Brandon's show.
Exactly.
We're gonna get him filtered. He's gonna get banned off of every channel.
We'll all be gone.
Here. Brandon, even you can tell us you came from the Brandon show.
Well, you guys do a phenomenal job of marketing. You have for a long time now. I mean, we're grateful to be a partner with you guys. You can find us all there. And I'm in there as well. So just appreciate you guys a ton. Walking your talk, the Bitcoiner talk, and the freedom ethos, everything. You two absolutely have that, and you just it's an honor to have you guys on here and partnered together, and also having you in the fight. So we appreciate you guys more than you know.
Yeah, we
Thank you,
appreciate you,
Brian.
brother. Always
Thank
doing
you,
the good
Brandon.
work.
If you like that episode, then you're going to love the playlist we put together for you with our most recent podcast with the top Bitcoiners, sound money, liberty advocates in the world. Go check those out here. We'll see you inside. You're going to love them.